So yeah, that's like the recording in progress you'll hear. So yeah, let's go ahead, open up iTerm. I'm going to have you cd into that week 1 directory. So if you are like in your // directory, which is probably where you are, you're going to go like to your desktop, and then whatever you called it, maybe DPL, I called this DPL demo this time around, and then cd into week 1. And remember the tab complete with terminal. And another thing we got set up, so once you cd into the appropriate directory, we can use our code dot that we set up earlier. Now, if that's not working, you can always just search for Xcode and, you know, open it up. Oh wait, not Xcode, VS Code. And then, you know, find the appropriate, oh, I closed the wrong one. Sorry. So you could search for VS Code in your applications and then just find the appropriate file or the folder. Sweet. So how I'm going to do this, how I like to get this set up, and especially just when we're working with JavaScript and VS Code, is if I come up to the top and I go to terminal and then click new terminal, I can actually run a terminal inside of VS Code. So, you know, I can like print working directory. And, you know, this is nice because it's going to put me automatically in the directory where I opened up the VS Code project. So right now I'm in my users James Yates desktop DPL week 1 folder. If I do an ls, there's my JS demo file. So we just need a JavaScript file. So to do that, you can come into VS Code, do a new file, call it whatever, demo.js. It just needs to end with the JS extension.
So you said create that demo.js with the other JS demo.js?
Yeah, I mean, we can, I was just kind of just recreating another file. We could use both. I'm going to delete this just so I have that one just to keep it clear. Cool. So just basic, let's start out with just a basic app. The most basic one that usually is written is the Hello World program, where we just want to log Hello World, a traditional first app. So with JavaScript, we use this console.log, which is just defined by JavaScript, and then we can pass it a string, which is just, you know, a sequence of characters. We can run this. So how we run a JavaScript file is I can run node, I type node, and then I give it the path to the file. So since I'm already in my week 1 directory, I can just tell it the name of the file I want to run, demo.js. And there's me logging hello world. Don't do this, but like, let's just say I was in my users James Yates directory. If I wanted to run this file, I would have to give it the path to this file. So that'd be desktop DPL demo week 1 demo.js. But with VS Code, it automatically, it's one of the nice things, it automatically puts us in this directory, so I don't have to type all this stuff out. So I'll go back to week 1. And so now, yeah, like I said, I can just run demo.js. You can also, in a terminal, and this can be anywhere, you can just run node. And now I'm in like a JavaScript like compilers. I can just type JavaScript inside of here. So this can be useful if you want to like try like a small little brain teaser out, or you're like debugging something and you want to like figure out how to do something. This node terminal can be very useful. So we'll use it quite a bit throughout the course.
So mine's running on DPL. What's the command to get it to week 1 again?
That's change directory. So if I was on,
Okay, I got it.
yeah. So these.
How did you get the part on the bottom that says problems output debug? I don't have that.
So that's terminal, new terminal. So I go up code terminal and then I click the new terminal.
Okay.
Right.
I don't see the part that says terminal either up at the top.
What do you mean?
Where you just clicked on terminal, new terminal. I don't see that either.
This part right here?
Hang on, let me go back.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me just check. I might have it in a different spot. Okay, found it.
cool. All right, so sorry, let's see into week 1. Let me go back to week 1. So yeah, let's just so getting familiar with like yeah, your tools like VS Code, the terminal. These are all things that are, you know, you're going to get used to. And if you're feeling a little, like I know a couple of you are maybe new to Macs, it's just a thing, just practice. You know, I really encourage you to, you know, try doing things with the terminal instead of manually. That's kind of how you're going to get better with this, is just practice. So let's go ahead and get started just with diving into JavaScript. And I would say this is more going to be just a lecture about coding and not even particularly JavaScript. I mean, I'm going to be using JavaScript to talk about some of the fundamentals of coding. And one of the most fundamental things that you're going to see in every language is, you know, a variable. Now, a variable is really just, it's kind of like it is when you learned about it in math. It's just something that holds a value. In computer science, you can think of it as like a bucket that is storing, you know, some sort of value. And a variable has a couple main parts. It has a name, a value, and something I'm going to say with this value is the value has a type. We're going to get into that later. And it has a scope. We'll talk about scope later. So let's focus on the name and the value. So our variable has a name, and we as the developer come up with the name of a variable. Now this is this is actually kind of a hard thing about programming, is naming variables. So we want to name our variables something meaningful. So let's say we're talking about like weather, and I want to talk about like the temperature. I could talk about the current temperature of, you know, the day. Now that would be like a good example of what like we'd use a variable for. So I would call it current temperature as something I could like talk about, but the value of the current temperature, I mean, that's always changing, right? Depends on like, it also depends what time of day it is, where you're living. But, you know, if you're in Salt Lake, you're going to have a current temperature. So to declare a variable in JavaScript, there's 3 keywords. There's let, const, and var. And I'm going to say var is kind of the older way. Let, this is new. You might hear this word ES6. Has anyone seen that word ES6? That is actually just another name for JavaScript. It's ECMAScript. So old JavaScript is referred to as like ES5. And now there's like you're here at ES6. This is kind of like a newer version of JavaScript. You also see like 7, 8, and 9. It's just kind of representing the version. So let's declare our variable of current temperature. So we have a let current temperature. You're going to find out I'm like a horrible speller. Pretty quick. Like 60 degrees. So yeah, really all we have here, here's our name. Our variable has a name. I'm calling it current temperature. I can call it, anything I really want. I could call it X. I could call it, that's a valid variable name, but we want to name our variables meaningful. So when we refer to it later in the code, like down here, I know what that's talking about. Yeah. The other thing our variable has is it has a value. So our value is 60. And something that's going to be really important as you go along in your like coding and when you're learning how to code, it's really paying attention to what type of data this is. And let me give you a brief little example of maybe 2 ways I could describe weather. I could say, the weather is like a number, like 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Or I could say the weather is, I could use like a descriptive word like warm. So these are 2 types of data. One is a number, one's a string. And they're both going to have their different use cases. Numbers are nice because like numbers I can do math with. I can compare numbers. I can like check to see, hey, is the weather greater than 32 degrees? Like I can do like that kind of comparison. Strings can be nice. Like if I want to, maybe have a little description about what the weather is. Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it hot? Strings are good for, any kind of thing with text. So cool. When we talk also, and I'm just going to get rid of this one. When we talk about variables, there's a couple keywords we could use. So if I just do let current temperature, this is declaring the variable. Console.log current temperature now. So I'm just going to run this node demo.js. Another trick, just a terminal trick, is if you hit up in terminal, it's going to it's kind of going to give you a history of your commands. So since I just typed node.js, if I hit up, there's no demo.js and I can hit enter. So that's a quick way we can run this program. So right now this is undefined. Now undefined is actually a type in JavaScript. And let me kind of show you what I mean. If I come and try to log, let me just do this down here, like a taco. I get what's called, I get an error because taco is not defined. And once JavaScript gets here, it's like, I don't have a JavaScript saying I don't have a clue what this thing is, taco. I'm going to throw an error. And so what happens is your program will actually stop running in the program. So if I have like a console.log right here in the program and I run into an error, it's not even, it's going to quit. Like the program's going to quit right here. But if that variable is defined, it logs undefined because that's an actual value. And then we hit the end of program. So that's declaring a variable. Assignment. So we can also assign a variable. That's where we just take our variable and give it a value. Now our variable has a value. And we can change our variable. That's kind of why it is, a variable. It can change. But let's look briefly at this const keyword, just to why do we have let, why do we have const, and why do we have var? So let's look at const. And what a const is, so a const, I'm going to declare a variable that's a constant. So I could have a freezing temperature, right? And that's going to be 32 degrees. Now I know there's things that can make the freezing temperature change technically, but really the freezing temperature is 32 degrees, right? That's a constant thing. You would not expect that to change. So I'm going to make that I'm going to use the const keyword. And if it's just kind of a convention in JavaScript, if this value is not going to change and it's a real world hard-coded value, I'll use uppercase to describe it. Now we're going to see a lot where I don't uppercase the word when I use const, and we'll kind of look at why, but I'm going to hold off a couple days for that. But let's just look at this. So I have a freezing temperature, which is 32 degrees, and now we can log that. So we saw here, if I use the let variable, I'm able to change the value, but with a constant, if I try to change the value of a constant, I get an error. Because that's part of the behavior when the people from JavaScript were writing this new feature of const. They wanted to have a way to declare a variable where you could not change this variable. So let me ask you, why do you think the developers of JavaScript would have this feature that purposely breaks? Why would you want your app to intentionally break? Kind of seems weird, right?
My understanding is that you don't want the user to be able to change things.
Yeah, it's kind of to protect us from ourselves. It's, it is easy, or accidentally, maybe we unintentionally change this value, freezing temperature, in our code. But would that ever make any sense to change that value anywhere? Because the freezing temperature is always going to be 32 degrees. I'll give you another example of a constant that you wouldn't want to change, and that would be pi. That is a constant value. Never, ever should that change. So if it's changing, yeah, have your code break, because you need to go inspect why it's breaking. And you'll find these errors when something just breaks like this. As you get better with debugging, these are nice errors because they tell you exactly what's going on. It's oh, I'm trying to assign a constant, I'm trying to do an assignment to a constant variable. I can't do that. It's going to tell me the line 20. Let me rerun this so we can, because I made some changes. Line 20. So it's kind of giving me oh wait, I didn't save that. Sorry, let me go ahead and change this one more time. It breaks, it tells me right in the code where it's breaking. So it's saying, hey, this is breaking in demo.js line 19. So as a developer, when it breaks like this, it really pinpoints the spot where it's breaking. So I could be like, oh yeah, I didn't mean to do that. Let's get rid of that. Oops. And now it's working.
So what is the console log end of the program there for?
This is just, so something also when you're like learning how to code, I'm just kind of showing the flow of a program. Beginning of program. So when a program starts, oh my gosh, beginning. Okay, I'm just going to leave that. When a program starts, it's really nice to just read it line by line from top to bottom. You read it, that's kind of how you read code. So I'm kind of just showing this end of program here just to like say, hey, this is finished. And because I wanted to show, hey, if you try to change a const, I don't ever see this log in my console because the code broke right here and it stopped right here. If I get rid of that, beginning of program, and we're going through the logs one line at a time. Cool. So I'll have you look at, so this GIST or this GitHub thing I have, take a look over this tonight with like, read over some of like the basic rules for naming and conventions for naming variables in JavaScript. Kind of let you know like what they can start out with. And we'll talk about, I kind of want to hold off on scope for now. I think that's a little out of the scope for this conversation. So I think as for now, let's just leave it like this as far as variables concerned. Variables, they have a name. They're just a way to store data into a named thing that we can use as developers. We're going to get a lot of experience with variables.
Now, what are you typing to get your program to run that? The terminal to run that?
I do node and then the name of the file.
All right.
How do I get my terminal in VS Code to run the ZSH? It still says bash, but my iTerm says ZSH.
You might need to restart VS Code if you change to ZSH. You might have VS Code open, change to ZSH without reopening VS Code.
Okay, so just close it and reopen it.
Yeah, but it's fine. It's gonna, you should still be like, these commands should all still work.
Okay.
I bet you that would probably fix it if it's set up in your other terminal. Cool.
If you hit the little plus by by James's ZSH, you should see like other options to open, see
yeah.
if ZSH shows up there, and then just close your bash terminal.
Cool.
It's only says bash twice in there.
Yeah, I would say either restart VS Code, but for now it's not a big issue.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, and thanks for asking. Like, I'm glad you're asking a lot of questions. I like when you do. So feel free to keep asking these questions. Good.
So when I ran Node.js demo.js, that's how I have it saved. It said uncaught syntax error, unexpected identifier.
Yeah, so that is probably that's just a syntax error. Let me slack out this little section so that if you have an unexpected identifier error, and you're going to be getting used to these errors as you go through them, that's usually something like, you're missing like a curly bracket. You're missing something syntactically. So I could like get rid of that just to kind of show you. So
Now, does it matter that mine's not popping up as week 1 anymore?
sorry, what was that?
So you know how every time you're typing, yours is popping as week 1. Mine just has the arrow.
Yeah, if you do print working directory, you should be in that week 1 directory.
For some reason, it's not having me in it.
Cool. So what directory are you in?
When I type in PDW, it just says uncaught reference error. PWD is not defined.
Okay, so you probably are in your node. You probably type node and you have this arrow, right?
Yeah, because on the right side, I have a ZSH, and then the last one says node.
Yeah, so this, when you type node in your terminal window, I'm now in a node browser. Like I can't, this is not my terminal. This is like a node browser. So yeah, I can't like CD into.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at right now.
Yeah, so you need to get out of that. You need to do a dot exit. So these are the type.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm back. So if I go into, if I type node, I'm in this terminal where I can now write JavaScript. But I'm like outside of my like ZSH terminal to get out of the node terminal, I type dot exit.
Okay. Yep.
And now I can type, node like demo.js to run that file.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the next part. So yeah, with these lectures, I'm kind of just loosely following around these. I think these you can kind of spend some time looking at these readmes. You just need to click on the folders. So let's talk about the data types in JavaScript. So like I said, if you were to think, and this is kind of not even kind of think about JavaScript, but like if you were trying to like describe like a person, what kind of things do you think you could think about with describing a person?
Name, appearance.
Yeah, we could have name, appearance. Appearance is pretty, that one would be a hard thing to describe. Yeah, so let's do name. You could do appearance, but like a little more specific.
Age.
Age.
Birth date.
EOD. Yep. Birth date. Or DOB, I should say. Yeah, what else do we have?
Eye color.
You could have like an eye color. Yeah, I mean,
Hair color.
hair color, like there's a ton. Like we could probably come up with like a list of like a million things, right? But let's look at like let me do like, you think of a couple friends. Yeah, and okay, cool. So if I'm thinking, so when I'm talking about data types, I think we kind of know this kind of intuitively, but we could also do like income or something like that. But these attributes that we're describing people as, they're all going to have this associated kind of data they are. Like a name is going to be like, some characters, right? In JavaScript and like every single other language, we call this like a string, essentially. And a string is just like it's just a sequence of characters. Like alphanumeric characters. So this is one of the most common types of data we'll see. What about something like age? What do you think age would be? Just the number. Now, different languages might have different kinds of numbers. JavaScript just has number. They have a number type, but I think a couple of you have learned like Java. Java would distinguish numbers between like integers and like floats. And there's like another kind called like doubles. So they have all these different ways to describe numbers. It's kind of nice with JavaScript, we just get the one. But yeah, a language like Java, they might want to, hey, there's a difference between an integer, which is just a whole number, or a float, which is something that has a decimal, or a double, which I could make like a really, really big number, or a bigger number, I should say. So they can get more specific about like, you know, what it would be. If we're looking at age, what would it make sense for age to be, do you think? If we had to choose.
Number?
Yeah, so in JavaScript, it is a number, but what if we had to choose between like integer, float, and double? So I'll just say like double is like a big number. That can be a decimal.
Float or float?
Integer.
Yeah, I would either say like, I could see float. You could say.
Because you could do
something.
like 21.5, like 21 and a half, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's valid. I also think like, you know, just integer. Like when someone asks me my age, I don't say I'm like 21 and a half. I
Yeah,
just,
that's true.
you know, I'm 21. But I don't, you know, it could also be a float. So a lot of the times it's you as the developer, you're needing to decide what type of data something should be. With JavaScript, we can use the type of, you know, keyword to see what type of something is. I'm just going to call it string. String one. Give that a bad name. So here's my variable. I called it string one. It has this value ASDF, ASDF, but it also has a type, which is a string. I could do this with my number. So I could console.log, hey, what is the type of age? That is also, well, that's a number. So date of birth. What about date of birth? I think that could be a string. Right?
Yeah, I think it's string would be easiest.
Log DOB. We won't get into it now, but you know, there is a type. We can make like there's actually a date data type. Because think in the world of like the internet and websites and just even computers, you know, there's probably limitations to what we can do with a string. So someone, hey, has decided, hey, let's make a date data type.
So right now that DOB is a string.
Yep. So type of DOB. Yeah, just to show you like a number, like we can have decimals, strings. So in JavaScript, let's also say this, a string, we can use single quotes, we can use double quotes, and we can use backticks. Those are all acceptable ways to write a string. The backticks are nice because what you can do with a backtick, you can do interpolation. So you can actually write JavaScript within this string by using a $ curly bracket. See how that changed like the coloring of VS Code? So I have a string in here, but I'm also like, now I'm in, it's called interpolation. Interpolation. Let's go ahead and backticks. Now that's doing 1 + 1 = 2. It's actually going in there and it's evaluating that expression. It's very useful. We're going to use that a lot. So that's, if you want to do interpolation, you have to use the backticks. Otherwise, to define a string, you can use the double quotes or single quotes. Cool. Let's see here. So we have like also with computers, you'll see we have these weird, not weird, but maybe something you're not familiar with, but these types of data. So we have undefined, we have null, and we have nan. So these are described in, like, these are JavaScript variables. Here's my error console. So let's go through this error right here. Consoles is not a function, so I'm getting a type error line 22. There's my error. Oh, I forgot to put the .log on all of these. So something you're going to want to do as you're, going through these exercises, start reading these errors. Start getting good at debugging. It's definitely a skill and it takes time, but the more you kind of like look at these, try to understand what they're meaning, it kind of definitely looks a little foreign when you start, but it's just like practice. So if I do the type of undefined, that type is undefined. Type of null is an object. Type of nan is a number. So nan, this is kind of funny that nan stands for not a number, and the type of data is a number. So this one's a weird one, but so here are kind of some other types in JS. Undefined, null, and nan. Yeah, and then we're also seeing this object type. So let's talk about, and I'm just going to so when I Slack this out, it's in there. Because we can talk about this. We can say, there are primitive types in JavaScript. So there's string, number. We saw example of those two. There's a Boolean, undefined, and null. I'm going to just take out this symbol for now. The one we haven't talked about, what's a Boolean? Boolean's pretty straightforward because it can, yeah, true or false. It can be one of two values. So I could do type of true and type of false. And those you see are both Booleans. So those are the only two Booleans there are. It's either true or false. Cool. There is also, so if we look at something like friends, that's plural. That would be like a list of people. So when you think about plural stuff, we're thinking about arrays. So I could have a variable const people. And this is going to be in an array. How I do in an array in JavaScript is with the square brackets. And then I can put any kind of data inside of here separated by commas. So maybe I have an array of strings. So think of just arrays as like lists, indexed lists. Console.log people. They are indexed at 0. So what do I mean by index at 0? If I want to grab the first person in the array, I can index it like this by using the curly bracket, or sorry, the square brackets, and then start counting at 0, grab the first one. So if I do people at 0, that's going to grab John. If I do people curly brackets at 2, that's 0, 1, 2, that will give me Joe. So this is really brief on these types of data. We're going to spend like full days on arrays and objects, but let's talk about objects really quick. So I think as a very basic understanding or brief kind of naive understanding of objects in JavaScript, we can think of them as key value pairs. Pair, and let's call it pair store. It's kind of like, you can think of it like a dictionary, where there's going to be a key, that's going to be the word, and then you'd have the value, which would be the definition. So I could have a person object, and how you do a object with a person, or in JavaScript is with the curly brackets. So a person could have a name. And a person could have an age, etc. So let's just keep it. So it's like, it's a way I can describe multiple attributes on one variable. So that's what objects are good for. And to access a value on an object, I can use the dot notation. So yeah, here are our very basic types of data in JavaScript. But most programming, like every programming language, is going to have a string. They're going to have a way to represent numbers. They're going to have a way to, Booleans for sure, or like a way to represent undefined or like null values. And then every programming language is going to have arrays. They're going to have this idea of like a key value pair store. In JavaScript, we call them objects, and so forth. So by learning like the basics of JavaScript, and I'm sure if you're coming from learning like Ruby, you've probably seen some very close similarities between JavaScript and Ruby. They're definitely not the same, but they have similar things about them. So I'm going to slack that little demo out. Cool. Any questions on that? So how are we doing on time? 3 o'clock. All right. I just briefly, so I'm going to be quick with this, and we're going to spend a lot, because I want to give you some time to actually be able to go through, try to code this yourself, try to work on some problems yourself. So let's briefly talk about, because I'm going to skip over this operators one. Let me show you really quick what I'm talking about. Maybe we can just kind of look at this really quickly together and then spend some more time on it tomorrow. Because I think operators, I think we're pretty familiar with operators. These are things like we can do with math. They're like plus, minus, division, times. So we have our arithmetic operations, plus, minus, times, divide. Has anyone heard of the modulus? This is one we can spend a second on. So modulus gives you the remainder of division. So let's see what that means. So actually, I'm just going to do this in Node. Let's just do like 3 mod 2. So that's 1 because 2 goes into 3 once with the 1 remainder. So that's what you're getting back. You're getting back the remainder of division. Like if I do 5, or if I do like 21 mod, I don't know, 6. That's 3 because 6 goes into 21. I gotta stop picking numbers where they're the same. Okay, let's do 21 and 5. So 5 goes into 21 4 times with 1 remained over. If I wanted to see if a number was odd or even, I could just say, hey, does the odd, if I take the mod of it, if the mod of anything, if I mod anything by 2, if it's 0, I know that's an even number. If it's 1, I know it's an odd number. So that's how you can like figure out if something's odd or even, or divisible by, like if something's divisible by 3, I would expect it to have a mod of 0. So that's like, I think that was like the first time I learned about this operation. And you actually can use it quite a bit, not, let's say a little. It is actually an operation you find yourself using every now and then in computer science. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to skip over these. There's just shorthands to add stuff. Well, let's just look at one example. So let's come in here. I'm going to exit out of node. .exit. Let's just say I have like a num here that's equal to 1. I could do a num plus plus. What that's going to do is that's just going to add 1 to my, it's like a shorthand to add 1. I could have done it like this. I could say num equals, take the value of num and add 1. That works. This is one way to increment my number by 1, or I could just do a num plus plus. That's just a shorthand. So maybe now like the C++ language where they came up with that name, that should make a little more sense. It's like C plus 1. It's like one up. It's like a nice version of C. But we can do those with different operations. We can do plus equals. So a plus equals, I could say num plus equals 10. What is this going to log? So one of the things you can also do when you're coding is try to guess what the output is going to be before you run it. It's kind of how you can learn how to read code. So remember, we start at the top. I set my number equal to 1. And then here I reassign it with this new value where I take the number and I add 1 to it. So now my number is 2. And then I come here and I do a plus plus. So now my number is 3. And now I do a num plus equals 10. That's just a shorthand for saying my number equals num plus 10. It's just a little bit of a shorthand. So right now my number's 3 and I'm adding 10 to it. So I'm expecting this to be 13. And there we go. So those are these operators. Cool. Let's also take a look at these operators, logical operators, and, or, and not. These are ones you know like intimately. Like you are very, very good with these, like as being a human. Like the computer's never going to be as good as you as this. But it's actually it can be challenging sometimes to code these. But let me just show you like how simple these are. Like if I were to say like, you know, I'm 1,000 years old and my name's James, is that true or false? That statement is false, right? Because I'm not 1,000 years old. If I were to ask you, are you 1,000 years old and taking DevPoint Labs, you know, cohort, like coding class, you'd say no. That's what the and is. For the and, both expressions have to be true. The or, if I said, are you in DevPoint Lab school or are you an alien? That's true because only one of them has to be true for the whole thing to be true. So that's our or operator. And for our, there's also a not. It's just like the opposite. So I could say I am not 100 years old. And so then that would be a true statement because I am not 100 years old. So we have these operators in JavaScript. So and that's going to be 2 ampersands. We have or. That's going to be 2 pipes, and then we have not. It's going to be a bang. And I can just, I'm going to Slack this example out so I don't have to type these all out. But once again, let's just, before we run these, what is this going to, like, let's try to think what this is going to be. What is true and true?
It'd be true, right?
Yeah, that'd be true. True and false.
It'd be false.
False. Yeah. What about false and true?
It'd be false.
Yeah, the order doesn't really matter. That's actually not true when you get technical, but we'll keep it at that. So yeah, these are true. What about true or true? That's obviously true. True or false? That's true. False or true? That's true.
Now explain why those last 2 are true again, please.
These last 2?
Yeah.
Just because if I say like with an or, only one of them has to be true. And I think the best way to think about it is just think about it in like, you know, the real world. It's like either like the Rams won the Super Bowl yesterday, or, you know, aliens for sure exist. Like that second one's not true, but the first one's true. So it doesn't really like, so the whole statement together is true.
And that's always for ors.
Yeah. So that's always for ors. So yeah, we run this. And then we go true, false, false, and those are all true. Now we can like get a little, it's not just what, like we have to have 2. We can do like, you know, we can get into some like weird expressions. So if I had like this long one that was like false or true, and notice the parentheses, it's kind of like math. It's going to do whatever in the parentheses first. And I go from left to right. So false or true, and I'm actually going to copy this so I can like change it, but we have the original value. So false or true, that is true. True and false, that's false. False or not, well, not false is true. False or true, that's true. So like this whole,
That part was a little confusing.
yeah, it's like math. So it's kind of like how you would solve a math problem, just doing one at a time.
Like PEMDAS?
Like what does?
Like PEMDAS, like parentheses, exclamation point.
Yeah, it's like PEMDAS, except the only thing you really have is parentheses, and then it's just left to right. So, but you're, and we'll see this. I just kind of wanted to show these true and false and these operators. Where we're really going to see these is when we get into if else statements. Just kind of wanted to show this to you, but let's see if I got that right. This last one. Yeah, that's coming off as true. So yeah, look at this. Kind of try to wrap your head around it. These can, like I said, you do this stuff in your head all the time. It's like, think about like crossing a red light. All of the conditions you're taking in to decide that one thing, like, should I go or should I not? There's like hundreds of conditions you're taking in, and you just do it automatically. So with code, we kind of have to like explain how to do it, which gets, you'll find myself when I'm teaching, I'm getting these reversed and like confusing myself just thinking about it. It can get a little chaotic in there. Cool. So let's take this, what we learned with true and false and operators, and because I think that's good for well, we also have comparison operators. I think as far as math goes, we know like greater than, less than, equal to. So let's talk about one kind of more nuanced thing, and that is equality. So let's say I have a number that's equal to 1. Let num1 equal 1. Then I have a num2 equal 2. So I could do like a console.log. Does num1 equal num2?
That should be false.
I'm seeing, yeah, well, it's like, and to clean this up, I'm just gonna comment out. Well, actually, let's do this so we can see where we're at. Yeah, so num1 does not equal num2. I think that's pretty apparent. If I switch that to 1, that's true. Now, there's also an equality check where it's a triple equal sign. So what's the difference? Because that's looks like they're the same. What the difference is between these two is if one of these is a string, like the triple equality is going to check for the type of data. So this is called loose equality check, and this is a strict. So this checks value and type. So this one in JavaScript, it's actually going to, behind the scenes, try to switch the types and see if they're equal. But with the triple equals, it's going to say, hey, no, these are two different types of data. Even though their values look the same, they are not the same. Which one do you think you should use?
The first one?
No, you should probably use, it's better style to use the second one. The reason why is, let's say, well, let's look at what happens. I'm going to do this right here in Node. So if I take the string 1 and I add the string 1 to it, that gives me the string 11. But that is a string. So what it's doing string concatenation. So I could say hello plus, George. Because that, makes sense how you might add strings. You just plop them together. Obviously when we add numbers, it's just going to do like we do with math. But what happens when I add, that together? That gives me, this gives me 11. Now I'm probably, if I ever ran into that situation in my code, that's probably going to be a bug. Because why would I be adding a number to a string? Even though I might think that's a number. So why this is considered like a better practice, it's more strict. It's going to catch that case of, maybe accidentally I was expecting a number, but it was actually a string.
So you usually always use the 3 equals?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see me use double equals, and that's probably me being lazy. But yes, if you're like doing a coding interview or for like a job, yeah, use the triple equal. Unless you have a specific reason to use it. You might have a reason to do that. Maybe you don't care about the type. Doesn't matter to you. Then that'd be fine. Cool. So yeah, those are our operators. We'll talk about ternary operators in 1 second. So let's go to the next section. And I know I am just hustling through this, so we'll definitely have time this week to really process a lot of this. So let's talk about conditions. And once again, conditions are something you are very intuitively good at. This is like crossing that, intersection. It's essentially just like if, the light is green, go, else stop. That's an if statement.
So it's like if this card turns into my lane, then else would be I'd turn the other way or turn left or get out the lane.
Yeah, because let's kind of just look at the basic syntax of a if statement. Give me 1 second. It's a little loud out there. Okay. So yeah, as I said, our code, and let me slack this out. I think this is a little spot to slack this out and clear it up. So as I was saying, our code starts at the top, and we go line by line. Your JavaScript can only does one thing at a time. So it starts at the top, and it's running line by line. Now, what if else statements allow us to do is they allow us to kind of break and do certain different sections of code, whether or not a condition is true. And it has this syntax right here, like if condition, run condition is, I'm going to use this key truthy. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to just be true. It needs to be truthy. We'll kind of see what that means. Yeah, and we know this, let's say we're thinking about an intersection, and we have like a variable, let light color is green. So this is where we can start combining some of those operators, with this if statement to come up with some logic. So I could say like if light color equals green, console.log proceed, I should just say go. So we're running through our code. We have a light color variable, and then we're going to check, hey, if the light color is green, then we can go. So let me exit out of here, go. And then, yeah, if our light color is anything else, red, it's not going to do anything. So what if I want it to say stop? Well, this is where I could use an else statement. Console.log stop. So an if else statement is going to be, we're going to have this if statement, but we also have the else combined with it. And so this is going to run if the condition is falsy. Yeah. I'm specifically not saying true or false because there's this concept of truthy and falsy. So we'll see what that is. But so if my light color equals, now my right color is equal to red. So does red equal green? And you can type this in your terminal. Red equal green. I need to finish the quote. That's false. So that's going to hit this stop section. Oh, wait, let me undo that. So I want to just show you this really quick. Okay, so how can I show this? Sorry, I'm trying to get back to this error that I had. Okay. So let me show you this. Okay, so if I run this, I get an error that says stop is not defined. That's line 17 right here. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, I need to make that a string. So I wrap it in quotes. And then I rerun my code. And I still get that same error. This is a silly error, but it's going to happen to you. I guarantee it. So pay attention. Anyone know what I did or didn't do?
You didn't save your file.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't save my file. So VS Code gives you a nice little, I don't know, stupid Zoom thing's getting in the way. Gives you a nice little dot right here. That is saying, hey, this file is not saved. So if you run your code and you get an error and it's like not what you're expecting, make sure you've saved all your files. So do a Command S.
Which is, oh, the dot right by the name. Okay, I seen it.
Yeah. And now that it's an X, visually, I can look at this file and I can say, oh, this is saved. Because when I make a change, now it's a dot. When I hit Command S, it's saved.
When I was typing out code like you, I would try to put it in my terminal and it wouldn't work. But now that I saved it like that, it's starting to work now.
Yeah.
I was just about to ask you that too.
No, that is something I see like get asked all the time. So remember to save your files and then run your code. Cool. So there we go. Now it's saying stop. Pretty straightforward, right? If else statement like this, like I said, this is stuff you know intuitively. Let's do, but like it gets hard when you try to code it. I mean, we're doing a simple example now. I'm not trying to say it's easy. It can get hard when you try to actually code a complicated case. So let's do one other case. Let's say we want to handle yellow. Right now we don't handle yellow. So this is where we're going to use what's called a if statement. And how this looks is I can throw in an else if keyword here, and I can throw another condition. So now I could call this like condition 1. This could be condition 2. Okay. So let's add that to this. So let's do an else. Let me just keep some of these demos here so we have them. Here's just an if statement. Here is a if else. And now we're going to look at the if. So what I can do here is I can do an else if. And I can add another condition.
So right now you have 3 total. You copied 3 of them.
Yeah. I'm just going to say for now for that one. So I have one that's just the if statement. Did another one. It's just more to kind of show the syntax. And I'll slack this out when we're kind of done with this. Okay, so let's look at this else if statement. Getting tongue twisted here. So let's make our color yellow. So notice with the if else, so I'm not handling the yellow case. So with this one, if the light's yellow, we're just going to stop because it's not green. So we're only going to go if it's green. If it's yellow or if it's anything other than green, we're going to stop. But now I have like this else if statement, and now we have this light color. Oh, I need to do. All right, let me just leave this like this right now, because maybe this should, this was unintentional. Why is this logging? I didn't check to see if this was equal to yellow. I just said if light color, and that actually logged. Let me show you this. Let me switch the light color to red. I'm logging again. Unintentional, I put there, but it should be making you think, right? Why if this is red or if it's yellow, I'm hitting this else if statement. Let me show you this. Let me just get rid of this, or let me show you this if statement. If light color, console.log. So if we have a light color, like what? That's true. So this is a truthy value. We have a light color. Strange, huh? So that's why I say if condition is truthy. So truthy is really if something is like has a value, that's like considered a truthy value. It's actually easier in JavaScript just to remember the falsy values. Falsy values. So we have, and so what I'm going to do to show these falsy values is I'm going to do a not statement. Right. So if, oh no, that's not going to work. Let's do this. Let's do an if else statement. Zero is falsy. So here's how I'm going to show these falsy values. So I'm throwing 0 in an if statement. If 0. So if 0 is truthy, I would expect this 0 is truthy to be logged. 0 is falsy. I just want to show you this one because this is interesting.
So what's making that falsy?
The answer to that is the people who design JavaScript. So they said, hey, 0 is a falsy value. 1 is a truthy value. So I'm just going to say this, any number other than 0 is a truthy value. 0 has a falsy value because in binary, like 1 and 0, like 0 is falsy because it's false. So let's look at some other falsy values. And then, like I said, then it's then you can assume everything else is truthy. So obviously, false is falsy. And actually, VS Code is so aware of this that it's actually graying this out, and it's telling me, if I can hover over this, it's telling me there's unreachable code. Does that make sense? If false, this is never going to run. And you know, neither is this, but VS Code's not smart enough to see it, but it definitely sees it with here. It's like, hey, that's unreachable code. So false is a falsy value. There is null. There is a empty string. So a string that does not have any value in it, any characters, that's going to be It's going to be falsy. There is nan. There's undefined. I'll select these out. So nan is going through all of these values. So see, 0 is falsy, false is falsy, null is falsy, empty string is falsy, nan is falsy, undefined is falsy. But if I give it like a string, string is truthy, just to show you like even an empty array is truthy. A object is truthy. A negative numbers truthy. So let me select these out. So like I said, the easy way to remember falsy and truthy values is just remember the falsy values, because there's like 6 of them.
So with that -234, if you scroll back down, if you were to put falsy in the console log, what would happen?
Oh, this is, if I put falsy here.
Yeah, would it come out as falsy?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But
you're just telling us that those are all truthy statements.
yeah, because well, what this is, I'm doing an if statement. So for this if statement to run, this thing needs to be true. But let's look at this. I think this is a good thing to look, because this is more nuanced with code. Because this is a little weird example, but why is this? What's really wrong? This is like a bad bug in my mind. Because in my mind, this code is syntactically correct. Syntactically. I really get syntax. Syntactic. Okay, whatever. How do I spell syntactically? Syntax correct. There we go. But what's wrong with this?
It'd be actually true because it has numbers in it, and numbers are always truthy, right? Anything above 0 is always truthy.
Well, by the fact that I'm saying falsy, it's like me as the programmer, I'm not like, this is the, like, let me be more specific and say this. -234 is falsy. I'm logging -234 is falsy. Is -234 falsy?
No.
No. So that's like, and this is what, these are really hard errors to find, because it's like my logic's wrong. Like my code is right, but maybe I didn't mean to say falsy. Like this needs to be truthy.
So if you were to decode it, wouldn't pick that up?
What?
If you were to try to debug it, it wouldn't pick that up?
No, it's like, okay, let's go to the red light, because what I'm trying to get at here is, let's look at this light color. So if the light color equals green, let me just reverse the order of these.
The syntactically correct is when the computer code will run, but what you're putting out is false. What this is showing on, now I lost what I was saying. Like the code will all run because it's right, but what you wrote on it, the code isn't correct. So like, I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I get what you guys mean by that.
let's look at this, because this is a more, like, I think a more understandable example, getting away from the truthy and falsy values. Just think about this in the real world. if I had, so in my code right here, I have if light color equals green, then stop, else go. That code is syntactically correct,
But logically wrong.
but logically wrong. So this can be, this is a bad bug because it's not going to, like, it works until my code makes someone run a red light. And then, you know, that's a bad bug. So when your code breaks and you have like this big error, that's sometimes not all that bad because it's like, oh, it's broken, I need to fix it. But when you have a bug like this where you think it's working, but you got your logic wrong, these ones are dangerous and these ones are hard to find. So
Dangerous.
yeah, that's what I mean.
I understand now what you mean by syntax correct, but logically wrong. And that was a good way to explain it. Maybe.
Yeah. This way was probably not a good way to explain it. It's easier to see it with like a real world example.
The thing that you put out from last semester that you sent, that however you explained it that time made more sense, but this way you were explaining it, I didn't get it. But I heard what you said on the previous cohort.
Okay. Yeah, whichever one you can wrap your head around. Sometimes I feel like a lot of the stuff in code for me, it's like I have to learn it like 3 or 4 different times, have to hear it being taught 3 or 4 different times. That's why like I'm kind of not following this exactly. I think to see different examples of like if else statements, to see different examples of variables, to like read it. Reading it's different than watching a lecture, to code it yourself. I think that's how you can really help to have this stuff sink in. Because you come to lecture, you kind of just get like bombarded with information. Then you try the homework. And then as you're trying out the homework, you know, you can read this article. Maybe it's from the lecture notes, or maybe I'll send you some other outside references on like Google. Like Google's going to become your best friend for sure. So sweet. So that's the if else statement. Let's and the truthy and faulty values, but let me go ahead and fix that because I want this to specifically be yellow. So now we have an if else if statement. And you know, it becomes very readable. Like if the light color is green, then we go. If the light color is yellow, well, like that, I don't know, like, think about it. Else if it's red, we'll stop. So let's switch our light color right here to yellow. Actually, I'm gonna slack these out so I can just delete them. I'm not gonna have that example there.
So when you slack them out and send them to us, what is that? Just kind of like a reference in case we need to go back to understand it?
Yeah, so, you know, especially at the start, like I might be going fast, I might be typing fast, you might get hung up on like a small syntax error where like your code's not running. So I just slack it out so you can go into Slack, copy and paste it, have a working example.
Okay.
And then also I can just like delete this now. But now you also have like the example of it. Cool. Okay, so going back to this else if statement. So yeah, if our light color is yellow, I'm just going to reassign my variable here. So using some of that terminology. Here I'm declaring a variable and assigning it the color red. Yeah, and sure, I can go ahead and change it down here. So now my light color is yellow. Go ahead and run this. So here the light color is red, so we stop. But here it's yellow, and now we're console.logging. Now, what other, like when you're approaching a yellow light, what kind of makes you decide if you should go or not? Like what's one other thing that might affect that decision?
The
fast
distance.
How fast your car can go.
Yeah, how fast your car can go, the distance to the light. So let's look.
If other cars look, if a car looks like they're coming at the other cars, like not pay attention to the red light.
Yeah,
Like-
if there's other cars, like, can you like just try to try to think about coding a car going through an intersection? It's like impossible. There's like so many if else statements.
The amount of time that the light is yellow.
Yeah, the amount of time. So let's do this. Let's just have a simple Boolean, like we'll just do distance. We'll say like short. I'm going to come in here, declare a variable called let let's just call it safe. We're combining all of these factors into a variable like safe to cross. And I'm going to have that be a Boolean.
Also, if you're going to be turning versus going straight, you'd probably more likely slow down if you were going to turn. I mean, stop if you're going to turn than if you're going straight.
Yeah.
What direction you're going to head at the light.
Yeah, let's say we did like a check. Safe to cross, where we checked all those factors. Actually, let's go ahead and have this go into our next section. We're going to do it. Well, let's just do it like this. So what I might do here in this else if statement is I could have another if statement. So let's do the if check safe to cross. So, we did all those checks. We checked the distance. We did everything. And now we can decide inside of here, to console.log go. Like maybe here we want to like console.log, go, but speed up. And here we probably want to like, since it's up yellow, we probably want to like, hit brakes a little harder. And if the light's red, we can just do a nice gradual stop. So we come through like the intersection, and now we have two Booleans. So we could do like, if the light color is green, let's just go. But if we have a yellow light, well, let's check this. Let's have this Boolean, if it's check safe to cross. If that's true, we can go, but we'll speed up. Else we'll hit the brakes, like rapidly because, it's a yellow light. But if it's just a red light, then we can just gradually stop. Does the flow, like this nested if statement inside of this else if statement, make sense? I only need to like do this if the light is yellow. So I can have if statements within if statements. So if a certain condition is true, well, let me go in and check another condition because I might want to do different things. So that's one way to think about this. Another way to think about this is I could just do like a if light color. Let's say we have this safe to cross Boolean. Another way I might write this is if the light color is green and let's just make this say safe to cross. I think that's a better name. I just want to look at how these are different. Log go. Stop. Here's another way I could think about this. Like maybe this way, like I'm checking to see if it's safe to cross, if it's a yellow light, but I also might just have a check where it's like, hey, is the light color green and it's safe to cross? You know, if neither of these are true, if the light is not green or the light is, if it's not safe to cross, I'm going to stop. It's only when the light is green and it's safe to cross that I'm going to go. But this safe to cross Boolean's a magical one because it's really, but you see how I'm combining these two together in a different way where I'm using an and statement. I need to say console.log stop here. So the way I format these if else statements, they're gonna like behave differently.
So that bottom one is saying if the light is green or if the light is yellow, you can go.
Yeah, no, well, no, let's look at this let's look at this. Yeah, what if the light is yellow and it's safe to cross? Are we gonna stop or are we gonna go?
Go.
No, we're gonna stop.
Wait, my bad. Say that again.
So so this is where like we need to look at the code because maybe I have coded this wrong. So if I look at this if statement, if light color equals green and it's safe to cross. So let's just assume the light, let's say safe to cross is true, but the light color is yellow. Are we going to go or are we going to stop? Well, like what are we going to log is what I should say.
It's gonna log stop because it's, yeah, it's not matching up to what you have up there.
Yeah, because the light color equals green, well, that's going to be false.
Yeah.
And safe to cross is going to be true. Well, false and true is false.
Right.
So yeah, we would log stop. So maybe I would want to do a check here, like, or if I want to go, if it's yellow, I could throw in an or here, or light color equals yellow. I'm going to throw these in parentheses because like just one of those has to be true. So now if the light were yellow, now it would handle that case. Like, oh, if the light is green or yellow, that's true, and it's safe to cross.
I have a question, not about the code, about your setup in the studio code.
Mhm.
What color scheme do you use? Because I like that setup. I have one that has some red on it, and I didn't want any red unless there's an actual error.
Ah, man, I feel like this is the default one.
Okay.
Because I don't think I've.
Well, I noticed you have prettier in the bottom right corner. Is that maybe what it is? Because I downloaded that too.
I don't know if prettier would do it.
I think it is because that picture right there has the same type of colors. Yeah, see right there, like
James,
the
if you
P.
do Command K, Command T, you should see which theme you're doing.
Command K, Command T. Is that dark plus? Is that my? So what was that? So Command K, Command T pulls that up. And then I guess I'm on the dark default, but
I think that's just your background.
Yeah, I think he's correct with the prettier thing. So I'm actually just looking that up now.
Because I have prettier downloaded too, but mine, like I think your parentheses are a different color.
oh, the parentheses, that is that's something else. That's this bracket pair colorizer. So what that just helps with doing that. So let's actually, I think this is so just taking a step away from JavaScript and going back to like some tools. Oh man, now I don't like this one. How do I go? I need to go back.
Sorry.
Well, you're fine. Yeah, I'll fix it. But so if you go to on Visual Studio Code, there's this like box section icon, these 4 boxes. These are where you can add extensions that help you, that, you know, give you some different functionality. So I don't want us to get too much into them today and don't overdo them, but I think one that can be helpful is, so you go in and you search for like bracket pair colorizer. And then you can go in there and click like install. And what that's going to do is it colors your brackets to make it more easy to see. And then like when I like select one, it gives me this nice little yellow line to show me where my like curly brackets are ending and closing.
Yeah, I was just noticing that as you were going
Yeah,
through,
mine just
that it's
updated.
very separated. Yeah, it looks really good and clean.
Yeah, to be honest.
Because like, yeah, and that's nice because like here they're yellow, and then inside of here they're pink because this
Yeah.
pink one closes that one. And
Because
this
I'm pretty sure his and ours would just all be the same color, just like white.
So that is maybe what you're thinking. And I think that one's a good one to install because it can help you like find some syntax errors. Because yeah, you come in here and you like accidentally are missing a, you know, curly bracket, and now your code doesn't work, and you're like, well, this purple one is going down there. Oh, that looks like a little far. So it can sometimes help show where you need it. Let's see, it's 3 o'clock. No, it's okay. It's 4 o'clock. I think let's stop here because and so you can take a break and get started with homework. I'm not going to have anything due today. You know, it can just kind of be a day. If all you want to do today is just really go over these readmes, that is fine. I do in here, I have some homeworks. We didn't talk about functions. We'll get into functions tomorrow. And loops. Yeah, I would say for the homework today, just since there's not that much time, I would say to go through these readmes. And one thing you should do and I think this can be, especially when you're starting, when you're going through like a tutorial online, like don't just read it, go through and actually like type it out. Don't copy and paste it, type it out. Because when you start typing stuff out, you're gonna start, you're gonna run into syntax errors. Because if you come in here and just like copy and paste, you know, what good is that going to do? Because
Right, you'll be able to identify your mistakes more if you're actually typing it out rather than just
Yeah.
copy paste.
yeah, because you'll come in here and you'll say like lay x equal 2 or you know w, and you'll be like, that's unidentified. You're like, why is that? What am I doing wrong here? Oh, I spelled let wrong. Then you'd run it again, and then you'd be like, oh, now it's at W is not defined. Oh, I meant that to be a string. Yay, now it's working.
So
And
it
then,
just kind of helps you with like the trial and error.
yeah.
So you said do 1 through 8?
Well, let's do like, so we talked about 1 through 4 today. But yeah, feel free if you want, do 1 through 4. If you want to, you can do 5 through 8. The homework that I have on here, I want to try to do it just because we haven't talked enough about it. And like you only have, like it's the first day, you know, it's I think it's one of the more stressful days. So it's just a lot going on. So read over these. I think 1 through 4. I mean, these are pretty long, so I think there's quite a bit of material here, but I'm not going to stop you if you want to go further. Cool. Any questions or anything?
Yeah, I had one about it, just about the extensions really quick. If there's any extension that would help format the JavaScript, or if any extension for the JavaScript that you would suggest.
I'm going to suggest don't use one right now. Because I can like
VS Code actually has a really handy formatting option. If you just right click on the document, you can go to format document. If you right click on the text that you're typing and do format document, it'll make it a really nice layout. I did it for my HTML and it made it look really good.
Oh yeah, because I would totally like I totally recommend them. I think they're great. Like that's what Prettier is helping with. But one reason I think it's good you do it on your own, it's just to get you in some good habits of like it's like typing it out yourself for the start. And then once you get a little more, it's going to help you get a little more comfortable with the syntax. Because yeah, we could have an if statement because like the computer doesn't care if true. Log, whatever. I'll just take one. And then, you know, you could just like nest these inside of each other and not have like formatting. Like, obviously, that is that's very hard to read if you don't have the right format. And yeah, I can like go ahead and like format document and just like that, it's boom, it's formatted, it's like indented, which is nice. But I think it's maybe good to not rely on that. I'm being such a hypocrite when I say that because I rely on it so much. But I think when you're learning to go in and manually like to force yourself to be like an if statement, okay, there's a block. Now I need to like tab inside of here because I'm going to do something. I want to do another if statement. Okay, well, I need to now tab inside of here. Instead of just, you know, relying on that auto format. But I'm, like I said, I'm a hypocrite. I use auto format. I rely on auto format. But just as you're learning, just give it a couple weeks and then I'll kind of show you some formatting stuff.
Cool, thank you.
Is there any other extensions you think we should download, or that's good for now?
Yeah, we'll get into some. I mean, really, like I don't have that many. These are like, I have that. I have the spell check. I think the spell check one is good. This codes because you can misspell a variable name like I don't know, my leg. Maybe that's not how you spell mileage, is it? Are you kidding? Oh my gosh. Ugh. So something that's going to happen, you're going to like look at words and they're not going to look at words. They're not going to look like they're spelled right. That is how you spell mileage. Okay.
Wait, is it? Oh, my bad.
Because no, I mean
weird.
Words like it's weird. Words like person, because maybe we're doing an assignment about people and you spell person like 100 times in your app and you've just been staring at it for like an hour, and then person you like forget how to spell person because it doesn't. You're like, shouldn't it be like person? Like, I don't know. It's weird. You have to, you'll experience it. I guarantee it. But yeah, having that, like, I just want to spell something wrong. Having the spell checker is nice because then right away it's bad to like misspell a variable and then like reuse it misspelled all throughout your app. That's just leading to, you know, sloppy code and potentially bugs down the line. So I think the spell check is a good one because then like, oh hey, because this is syntactically correct. JavaScript's going to run this, but it's not semantically correct because that's misspelled.
So what that extension is doing is just putting the squiggle underneath that word?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then I can
or-
click on that, and then it gives me some suggestions.
So you think we should download it?
Yeah, that's one. And you already get this about me. I'm a horrible speller, so
Cool.
Yeah.
Spell checker. All right. Thanks.
I would say that's a good one. Well, once we get into GitHub, definitely we'll have you do Git lens. But we're not gonna, don't worry about that one for now. And yeah, prettier, that's a good one. Cool. Yeah, let's take a break. Well, before we do, I just want to share where we're going to be meeting, because this is what we're going to do for project time. Is you will have lecture, we'll go to lunch, and then when you come back, we're going to be meeting in a different Zoom room, kind of led by Michael. And he also created this help desk Spring 22 channel. So this is the channel where you'll like ask questions about homework and ask it as a group so everyone can see it and everyone can answer. And also up here, this is the Zoom link. So it's right here, right there. That's the Zoom link you're going to go to join this channel. So let's do it. We kind of went a little long. Let's take like a 15-minute break, come back at 4:10 at this Zoom channel that's on the help desk Spring 22. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Sweet. And if there's no questions, I'm going to close out this room too. Awesome.